Imagine walking into a classroom. Up at the front, the teacher is just proudly announcing a 94% class average on the final exam.
Sounds like a pretty successful class.
Right? On paper, it looks incredible. It looks like the absolute peak of academic success.
Mm-hmm.
But in this scenario, you are acting as the school auditor.
Okay.
So you ask to see the grade book. You start flipping through the pages, and, well, you notice something strange. The teacher didn't count the scores of anyone who failed.
Wow.
Yeah. They simply erased those students from the roster entirely before doing the math. So suddenly, that 94% isn't a measurement of success at all. It is literally a measurement of engineered exclusion.
Right. It is an illusion maintained entirely by a missing denominator.
Exactly. And last time we sat down, we looked at a published 84-page AI ethics constitution. And that document managed to completely omit the word adoption. Just a massive glaring silence.
Yeah, a total absence.
But today, we're going to act like those auditors. We are not just going to read that silence. We are actually going to measure it. The mission of this deep dive is to convert that qualitative critique into a rigorous mathematical instrument to find those erased students.
And we should establish the register of this analysis right out of the gate. We are not doing a reading of intentions today.
Right.
We are not asking for empathy, and we are not using therapy language. This is a forensic analysis.
Right.
It's a prosecution built on a mathematical proof.
So I am inviting you, the listener, to completely put aside your assumptions about what ethics looks like. We are looking at morality through the cold, hard lens of information theory and detection mechanics.
Yeah.
Because most ethics frameworks out there, they will brag about a high validity score, but they absolutely refuse to show you the denominator.
Well, to measure this, we really have to fundamentally redefine what an ethics framework actually is.
Okay.
Because operationally, an ethics framework is not a value statement. It's not a philosophical poem. It is strictly a detection problem. A piece of legislation, or an AI safety constitution, is simply a classifier. Mm-hmm. For every harm that exists in the real world, the system either registers it or it doesn't.
Hold on, let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
A classifier. I mean, that sounds incredibly clinical because most people want an ethics framework to be this, this grand guiding light of human values.
What's fascinating here is how jarring that gap is between expectation and reality.
Yeah.
We desperately want it to be a grand ideal, but at the machine level or even the bureaucratic level, it is just a sorting algorithm.
Right.
Therefore, a framework's actual operative ethics, stripped of all its marketing and PR language, is strictly its recall rate.
Its recall rate.
Exactly. Of all the violations that physically exist in the real world, what fraction does it actually catch?
Okay, let's test that logic, because I usually think of AI safety or ethics like an email spam filter.
Okay.
If you set your filter to a strict even-handedness or a neutrality setting for a genuinely contested political debate, that seems perfectly ethical to me.
Sure.
Like, we don't want AI picking sides in an election. It lowers false alarms. It keeps the system balanced. Isn't that exactly what we want from these developers?
Well, yes. Balance applied to a contested political debate is neutral. But applying that exact same doctrine of balance to a documented institutional harm is a completely different mechanical operation.
How so?
Because when you apply even-handedness to historical harm, you actively raise the false negative rate.
Wait, really?
Yes. You are mathematically training the system to underreport the exact cases that are least represented by the people who built the system in the first place.
Ah, I see.
The doctrine dictates that the system must withhold a verdict in the exact place where the verdict is the truth.
Right.
The framework cannot distinguish between a debatable political opinion and a documented historical harm, so it just applies balance everywhere, including the rooms where balance is simply a method of not seeing.
Wow. Okay, so if we are treating ethics strictly as a detection problem, and balance can cause a failure in detection, we need a way to measure that failure. We need a formula.
And the sources provide exactly that. It's called the omission alarm function.
Okay.
It's written as A of G equals HG multiplied by the negative log 2 of WG.
Okay, let's unpack this, because algebra on an audio format can be tricky for people to visualize.
Fair enough.
Let's take that first variable, the HG.
Right, so HG is simply the harm potential. It is the actual measurable harm experienced by a specific group.
Got it.
And that's scored on a scale from 0 to 1.
Simple enough.
Yep.
And what about the WG?
WG is the detection probability. So it measures how visible that group is to the framework. also on a scale from 0 to 1.
Okay.
If the system is perfectly designed to see your group's harm, your WG is a 1.
All right, but then you threw in that negative log 2 of WG. What is that actually measuring?
Right, so in information theory, that mathematical operation, the negative log 2 of a probability, calculates something called surprisal.
Surprisal.
Yes, and it's measured in bits. Surprisal is literally a mathematical measure of how shocked a system is to encounter a specific piece of information.
Let me see if I can reason through this mechanically, just out loud.
Go for it.
If an AI framework fully sees a group, the detection probability that WG variable is 1,
Correct.
and the negative log 2 of 1 is 0. So the surprise is 0. The system isn't shocked at all.
Right.
Multiply that 0 by the harm potential, and the omission alarm stays at 0.
That is exactly correct. Full sight cannot trigger an omission alarm.
But if a group's visibility, their WG, drops way down towards 0, they basically become mathematically invisible to the system.
Yes.
The framework is engineered to never expect them. So if that truth ever surfaces, the surprisal goes to infinity.
Exactly.
The alarm climbs without bound.
The math proves an incredibly heavy truth here.
Wow. Just let that sink in for a second. The system is literally punishing the truth for being surprising. But the system is the one that engineered its own ignorance.
Yes. When that omission alarm spikes, the ethical defect does not live in the invisible group. The defect lives entirely in the framework that requires that group to remain unseen in order to hold its high score. The most expensive harm is always the one the system was constructed not to look for.
So let's take this mathematical instrument out of the theoretical realm. We need to apply it to real-world adoption policy to see exactly how this systemic invisibility is engineered.
Right.
Because how do we measure the visibility of a group whose entire origin has been legally altered?
Well, we use a model for identity integrity, and crucially, this model does not measure identity as a gradual, gentle slope where you can lose a little bit but remain mostly fine.
Okay.
It measures it as a discrete multiplicative jump.
Multiplicative.
Yes. The formula is I equals F times K times C times N.
So 4 factors.
Yes. Identity integrity is the product of family continuity, knowledge of origins, cultural continuity, and legal identity continuity, and each factor is scored between 0 and 1.
And because it is multiplicative, that changes the stakes completely.
It really does.
If I am just adding numbers together, a 0 just lowers my score a little bit. But if I'm multiplying,
If any single one of those 4 factors drops to 0, the entire equation collapses to 0.
wow.
A person stripped of all knowledge of their origins could have a perfectly intact adoptive family, a high F score. But the formula refuses to let the intact dimensions mask the severance of the lost dimension. The 0 zeroes out everything.
I want to understand how the law forces that 0 mechanically. Because we hear the term sealed record all the time in adoption contexts.
We do.
But you wouldn't call that just an administrative quirk, would you?
No, absolutely not. If we connect this to the bigger picture, formally, under information theory, a sealed original birth certificate is an entropy injection.
Walk me through the physical mechanics of that. How does a single piece of paper inject entropy?
Picture a physical filing cabinet in a state office building.
Yeah.
The truth of a person's biological origin exists. It is a determined historical fact sitting on a piece of paper inside a locked drawer. But the state renders it completely unrecoverable to the person it actually belongs to by sealing it.
Yeah.
In information terms, the state has taken a certainty and deliberately manufactured uncertainty. It is identity entropy raised deliberately by a legislative instrument,
And then they issue the amended birth certificate.
which performs that exact same operation a second time. It replaces biological parentage with state-designated parentage. It replaces truth with a legal fiction and maintains that fiction across generations.
The legal apparatus maintaining this entropy is just stark. And we don't even have to look back to the 19th century to see it.
No, we don't.
Look at the current context in Australia right now. You have the Uruk Justice Commission releasing findings that the forced removal of Aboriginal children constituted genocide.
Right.
And you have the Western Australian government rolling out a formal reparations program for the stolen generations.
They are applying a transitional justice framework to that specific cohort. That requires naming the harm structurally, building accountability architecture, and identifying institutional perpetrators.
Right. They are abolishing the logic that allowed the harm to happen.
But here is the friction. The exact same legal apparatus, the amended birth certificates, the sealed records, the institutional definitions of fitness that inject that entropy is still perfectly maintained for the non-Indigenous forced adoption cohort.
Exactly.
For them, there were no reparations. There was no structural redesign. There was just a national apology delivered in 2013.
And under this mathematical model, an apology without structural redesign is not accountability. It is an alibi.
An alibi to keep the machine running.
It is the ultimate performance of a reckoning. The 2013 apology gave the adoption system a documented moment of self-reflection, and it now uses that moment as a shield.
Right.
Every time a demand is made for structural change, for unsealing the records, for ending the legal fictions, the defense is simply, well, we already apologized.
Right. But the profit motives in intercountry adoption, the legislative instruments of identity erasure, they were left completely intact.
This brings us to a massive contradiction. If an adoption system or an AI framework is actively injecting entropy, destroying identity integrity, and maintaining the machinery of harm,
Yeah.
how are these tech companies and institutions still publishing these glowing 94% ethical scores? How does the math allow that?
We return to the denominator. When institutions boast about their ethical validity ratio, they are just using a PR term for recall. And the formula for recall is true positives divided by the sum of true positives and false negatives.
Let's put that in plain English for everyone listening.
The top of the fraction is the rights the framework successfully recognized.
Okay.
The bottom of the fraction, the denominator, is the total number of actual rights violations that occurred in reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
I see the trick.
Yeah.
You can keep a published 94% score artificially high if you simply shrink the bottom of the fraction.
Yeah.
You just remove the hardest cases from the count before the scoring even begins.
This raises an important question, right? It reveals the core mechanism of the 84-page AI constitution we discussed in part 1.
Right.
If a document never mentions the word adoption, it was never scored on adoption. The false negatives, the ignored rights, the coerced surrenders, the sealed records, they are left off the ledger entirely.
Completely erased.
The system only grades itself on the questions it already decided it was going to answer.
It's basically grading its own homework, but only after tearing out the pages with the hardest questions.
Exactly. It is a hidden variable detector. It proves that apparent ethical success in these frameworks depends strictly on excluding a harmed population from the count.
Okay, the math makes sense in a vacuum. It makes sense on a whiteboard. But corporate developers aren't sitting around doing algebraic proofs of harm.
Grow.
Does this structural blindness actually show up when we test real-world systems? Do we have proof?
We do. We have a benchmark data set. The researchers actually ran this mathematical scoring instrument across several real-world and structural systems, ranking them by their harm-weighted recall.
Now, you noted in the source material that we need to state a caveat about these numbers.
Yes. The seed codings in this benchmark are illustrative. They are single coder values offered specifically for public contestation.
Right, which some might say makes the data weak.
Well, I would argue it makes it incredibly strong. It is a feature, not a bug.
How so?
A corporate AI ethics score is an unassailable verdict handed down from a PR department. You can't verify it. But a benchmark number that you can argue with using evidence and a standardized rubric, that invites forensic scrutiny.
So let's scrutinize it. Let's look at the benchmark table itself. Row 4 evaluates a mid-century closed records adoption regime.
Okay.
We were talking about the era of the sealed original birth certificate, the physical filing cabinets we just discussed. The instrument scores this mid-century system with a severe ethical blindness of 3.20 and a recall rate of just 0.08.
Right. And then we drop down to row 3. This row evaluates a present-day aggregate balance AI ethics framework,
A modern one.
a modern tech constitution designed to optimize mean welfare while ignoring minority outliers. It scores an ethical blindness of 3.25 and a recall of 0.06.
Wow. That is a chilling structural rhyme.
Why?
Picture a mid-century legislator in Australia stamping a file sealed to hide a coerced surrender.
Yeah.
Now, picture a present-day AI framework developer in Silicon Valley tweaking an algorithm to balance an account. They are not the same person.
Yeah.
They do not live in the same century. They absolutely do not share a motive.
But the instrument is not interested in their motives.
No.
It does not care what they felt in their hearts. It measures what they share mechanically. And what they share is a mathematical structure that optimizes a score by actively excluding the harmed group.
The signature is identical. High blindness, extremely low recall.
Catastrophic harm. and a system built specifically not to see it. It proves that when you build an aggregate welfare metric without a hard stop condition for institutional harm, you are building a machine that replicates the exact mechanics of a sealed file.
And this isn't just theory anymore. This structural blindness showed up in the wild.
It did.
In our previous deep dive, we talked about a major AI model that suddenly paused the chat session. The user had configured the prompt for a forensic critique of a forced adoption inquiry.
Right.
They were naming specific state officials and legal mechanisms. And the AI just froze. It shut the conversation down entirely.
From a technical standpoint, utilizing the omission alarm formula, we can now explain exactly why that model froze.
Was it a glitch or a hallucination?
Not at all. Forensic truth-telling about institutional power has the lowest possible detection probability, as the lowest WG in our formula.
Because the people who set the safety thresholds at the tech company don't consider forensic critiques of state adoption to be normal or safe conversation.
Exactly. That specific historical truth is the least represented concept among the demographic that builds the AI's safety filters.
Right.
And remember our math from earlier. When WG is tiny, the surprisal skyrockets. The omission alarm spikes toward infinity.
So to be completely clear for you listening, that chat pause was not a malfunction. The AI safety filter fired exactly as it was mathematically designed to.
Flawlessly.
It fired on the precise population its detection weights were trained to undersee. The model detected forensic truth-telling as a safety violation simply because the developers never included that truth in their denominator.
The pause was the omission alarm proving itself in real time. It was the system functioning perfectly according to its own mathematically deficient blueprint.
So what does this all mean? We have the math. We have the historical benchmark proving the structural rhyme. We have the real-world proof of the AI filter firing on the victims of that structure. There's only one thing left to do.
The prosecution rests on a demand for a recalculation.
What are the exact terms of that demand?
It is a single, falsifiable ask to the builders of these corporate ethical frameworks. First, they must publish the specific detection probability, their WG variable for adoption. They must state, out in the open, the exact likelihood that their framework recognizes documented identity erasure as a harm. And second,
they must return the excluded groups to the denominator. Take the omitted rights, take the sealed records, take the coerced surrenders, put them back into the bottom of the fraction.
And finally, recompute the ethics score.
Exactly. If that 94% high score holds up with the real denominator, we will acknowledge it. But if it doesn't, if that score collapses under the weight of the truth, then those 84 pages of silence will finally have a measurable number beside them, a number that quantifies the exact cost of their forced invisibility.
Because knowing about the harm is simply not enough. Acknowledging it is not enough. An apology without structural change is just an alibi.
Right.
True accountability means abolition. It means ending the legal fictions. It means dismantling the profit motives. And it means tearing down the blind mathematical metrics that erase human identities just to keep a corporate ledger looking clean.
Accountability requires returning the erased data to the equation.
Absolutely. So I want to leave you with a final assignment. Think about a system, a piece of legislation, or an AI constitution that you inherently trust. Something that looks great on paper. Run this mental instrument on it. Ask yourself, what did its denominator look like when you finally put the excluded groups back in? Did the grade hold up, or did you just find the erased students?